My biggest piece of advice to student pilots is to incorporate this one word into your vocabulary and use it every single day. And it's the word yet. Over half of student pilots quit. Some reports say it's up to 80%. While I think definitely some of it is due to financial reasons, I think a lot of it is because people get to this middle part that I'm about to explain, they get stuck and they never recover. It's that dreaded middle part of anything worth doing, really, where you're tired, you know how hard the work is, and you have a long way to go still. The newness and excitement has probably worn off to some degree, and you also can't yet see the finish line. So this is really where the hard work actually begins, and it's a really important inflection point where you're going to decide to keep going or you're going to quit. But the thing that can keep you going, in my experience, is that word yet. So when you're feeling discouraged, add yet to the end of any sentence, and it will suddenly spin what would be discouraging. It'll spin that into a positive statement. So instead of saying, I'm not good at crosswind landings, it's I'm not good at crosswind landings yet. I'm not comfortable talking to ATC when it's busy yet, or I don't have all of those regulations memorized yet. So you see, adding yet reminds you that you still have control in the situation. It's not the challenge that you're facing is not final. It's not impossibly difficult. It's difficult, but it's not impossibly difficult, and you are not doomed. And the people that have those crosswinds nailed, they're really confident talking to air traffic control and they have all the regulations memorized, or at least it seems like they do. They probably just have more reps with it and they've been doing it longer than you have. And they're also a really good example of what's possible if you just stick with it. But for some reason, when we learn to fly, a lot of us, myself included, have this expectation that we're like suddenly going to be amazing at it out of nowhere when we've never done it before. And then we're disappointed when the real work begins and we're still not good at it yet. But even though I've been flying for 20 years, I can relate to you. If you're in the beginning of your journey, I can relate to you a lot more than you think. So I'm working on my CFI right now. And the other day I took my first flight in the right seat. And you would think that just moving from the left seat to the right seat is no big deal. And that's what I thought too. And I'm not gonna lie, the first 3 trips around the pattern were pretty humbling. I was really surprised at how little muscle memory I had. You know, just changing one hand to the other and you're moving over to another seat, no big deal. But I had very little muscle memory. My sight picture, like I basically just thought it was gonna be a lot easier, and it was humbling. And so if you haven't already, I promise you, you are going to encounter this situation in your training where you're going to realize, I thought this, maybe not all of training, but I thought this one part was going to be easier than it actually is. When this happens, you can walk through one of 2 doors. Door number 1 says, ugh, that was harder than I thought. I'm not good at this. And door number 1, please hear me loud and clear. Door number 1 leads to quitting. Or you can go through door number 2, which starts with the exact same thought of, man, I'm not good at this. But that's where you just have to cut off the thought and interject that word yet. So instead of saying, I'm not good at this, I don't seem to be cut out for this the way that others seem to be, just turns into, I'm not good at this yet. That is such a powerful mindset shift, and it happens with one word. And if you really want to ensure that you walk down door number 2 all the time, there's something you can be telling yourself in advance that's kind of an insurance policy against this bad thinking that can lead you down door number 1. And that's this. I really want you to tell yourself that I want this so badly that I am willing to be bad at it in order to become good at it. So this will help you to not overreact when things are harder than you expected, because you've just told yourself, well, hey, if I'm bad at it, I'm willing to be bad at it in order to become good at it. And even if I tell myself I'm bad at it, I'm saying I'm not good at this yet. So being bad won't set off alarms in your head that you should quit. And if you can maintain that mindset, your chances of accomplishing your goals will go up dramatically. And I can prove it from a story in my own life. So it took me 3 different tries to get my commercial license. The first time I did the ground school in like an intensive 3-day weekend. I took a couple days off to kind of rest before I took the written test. And as I'm sure you can relate, nod your head if you can relate to this, life got in the way and I didn't take the test, and a few years passed. So a few years later, I hired an instructor to start taking me through some of the commercial maneuvers in my own airplane. And during ground school, we started covering some of the ground school material again, and I just realized I was really rusty on this, and I got pretty discouraged by that. It really got in my head. And I had that door number 1, door number 2 decision. I didn't even realize it. That's why I'm saying it's so sneaky. So I was telling myself, man, I am not very good at this right now, and I don't really seem to be cut out for this the way that everyone else seems to have this stuff perfectly memorized and whatnot, and I feel down about it. And I didn't use the word yet, so I didn't quit that day, but I definitely lost momentum and I lost some hope, and I just kind of fizzled out and I didn't finish it. So years later, again, this was a long process for me. I decided, okay, this is the time to get my commercial because I really want to be a flight instructor, and I can't get that until I have my commercial license. And so I went through the ground school again, and I was presented with door number 1, door number 2. And this time I didn't consciously use the word yet, but I was so discouraged because I was getting like 80s on my practice test, and I thought like that's not going to cut it. But I told myself, all right, I got some work to do. So I kept studying. I ended up getting a 95 on my written test. And then the same thing happened with my commercial maneuvers. We're like, oh, it was kind of overwhelming at first. I was like, I got some work to do. And so I stuck with it, and I ended up passing my commercial check ride. I got to ring the bell at American Flyers, and it was such a gratifying experience because I stuck with it. And using that mindset, I was able to then get my commercial multi-engine license a few months later. I did that in about a week's time, and that was an intensive process, but I was able to think like, okay, this is new. I've got some work to do. And I stuck with it and I passed it. And I've got a picture of that. And I'm really, really proud of that in the Texas heat. And it was like the hottest check ride of like you can possibly imagine. I was absolutely drenched, but I stuck with it. And that one word yet was the difference maker in keeping me in the game. And you can pick your own vernacular. Now it's more clear to me, okay, yet, and that's easier. But at the time, my own vernacular was I've got some work to do, okay? I'm not where I want to be, and I've got some work to do. Pick whatever phraseology you want, but whatever you have to do to tell yourself, I am going down door number 2 no matter what, that's the word you need to repeat to yourself every single day as a student pilot. So here's what I would love for you to do. I would love for you to leave a comment sharing what you're not good at yet. And so keep it short, write one sentence followed by ... all caps, yet. So I will start us off and say, as of September 2024, I am not great in the right seat. Yet. I've got some work to do, but I'm going down door number 2. Absolutely. So I would love to see what you're also working through. I think it'd be such an encouraging comment section to realize that we're not alone. Like this learning to fly airplanes and becoming licensed like is difficult, and that's okay to recognize. And I think it'd be really encouraging to read everybody else's comments. So please leave a comment down below and I'll see you there.